It's been 100 years since the founding of the Chinese Communist Party in July 1921. As the CCP celebrates its 100th year, we take a look at its legacy and impact on China and its people. Armed with the Marxist ideology of struggle as its guiding principle, the CCP has targeted a long list of groups it sees as its enemy: landlords, intellectuals, pro-democracy students, religious believers, and ethnic minorities, with an extensive range of campaigns. With each campaign, the party's goal is to create a communist heaven on earth. But time and again, the results have been the same: mass suffering and death. Meanwhile, a few elite CCP officials and their families have accumulated incredible power and wealth. Although China has advanced economically in recent decades, the CCP still retains its nature as a Marxist-Leninist regime bent on solidifying its grip on China and the world. Millions of religious believers, ethnic minorities, and dissidents are still violently repressed today. 1921. The CCP's founding. The Communist Party of China was founded in July of 1921. In 1919, the Russian Communist Party sent members to China to help develop communism, and converted key Chinese members to become communists. The founding National Congress of the CCP was held on July 23, 1921, with just a small membership at the beginning, but it soon flourished and came to power in 1949, with Mao Zedong in charge. 1949 to 1953, land reforms. When the CCP took control of China in 1949, the party chairman Mao Zedong introduced the regime's first campaign, the land reform movement. Mao mobilized the nation's poorest peasants to violently seize the land and other assets of those deemed landlords, many of whom were just more well-off peasants. Historian Frank Dikötter, who has extensively chronicled Mao's brutality, said, "Many of the victims were beaten to death and some shot, but in many cases, they were first tortured in order to make them reveal their assets, real or imagined." 1958 to 1962, Great Leap Forward. Mao launched the Great Leap Forward in 1958, a four-year campaign that sought to push the country to exponentially increase its steel production while collectivizing agriculture farming. The goal, as Mao's slogan goes, was to surpass Britain and catch up with America. Peasants were ordered to build backyard furnaces to make steel, leaving farmlands neglected. Overzealous local officials who were afraid of being branded as laggards also set unrealistically high harvest quotas. As a result, peasants had nothing left to eat after turning over the bulk of their crops as taxes. This spelt disaster, and one of the worst man-made tragedies in history occurred. From 1959 to 1961, the Great Famine occurred, during which tens of millions died of starvation. Starving peasants turned to wild animals, grass, bark, and even clay for food. Extreme hunger also drove many to cannibalism. There are recorded cases of people eating the corpses of strangers, friends, and family members, and parents killing their children for food, and vice versa. As many as 45 million people died during the Great Leap Forward, according to historian Dikötter, author of Mao's Great Famine. 1966 to 1976, the Cultural Revolution. After the disaster that was the Great Leap Forward, Mao scrambled to reconsolidate power and launched the Cultural Revolution in 1966. According to an early directive, he aimed to crush those persons in authority who are taking the capitalist road, and strengthen his own ideologies. The endeavor included the whole of society, with the party encouraging people from all walks of life to snitch on coworkers, neighbors, friends, and even family members who were counter-revolutionaries, anyone with politically incorrect thoughts or behaviors. The victims included intellectuals, artists, and even CCP officials. They were subjected to humiliation through struggle sessions, which were public meetings where victims would be forced to admit their supposed crimes and endure physical and verbal abuse from the crowd. Traditional Chinese culture was a direct target of Mao's campaign to destroy the Four Olds, referring to old customs, culture, habits, and ideas. As a result, countless cultural relics, temples, historical buildings, statues, and books were destroyed. 1989. Tiananmen Square Massacre. What started as a student gathering to mourn the death of reform-minded former Chinese leader Hu Yaobang in April 1989 morphed into the largest protests the regime had ever seen. University students congregated at Beijing's Tiananmen Square and asked the CCP to control severe inflation, curb officials' corruption, take responsibility for past faults, and support a free press and democratic ideas. However, it was met with a severe crackdown, and on the evening of June 3, tanks rolled into the city and surrounded the square. Scores of unarmed protesters were killed or severely injured after being crushed by tanks or shot by soldiers firing into the crowd. Thousands are estimated to have died. 1999 till today. Persecution of Falun Gong. Before the turn of the century, the CCP launched another bloody suppression on the estimated 70 to 100 million practitioners of the spiritual practice, Falun Gong. Still practiced globally today, it is a spiritual practice that includes meditative exercises and moral teachings centered around the values of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. When it became popular in the 1990s, then President Jiang Zemin wanted to eradicate the practice, and began a nationwide crackdown on its practitioners. A massive propaganda campaign was also launched, denouncing the practice as an evil cult, and creating narratives to paint practitioners as irrational and insane. One example is the Tiananmen self-immolation hoax, where a practitioner seemed to set himself on fire. However, it was staged by the CCP, to show that Falun Gong practitioners practiced self-immolation. According to the Falun Dafa Information Center, millions of practitioners have been fired from their jobs, expelled from school, jailed, tortured, or killed simply because they refused to give up their belief. In 2019, an independent People's Tribunal in London confirmed that the regime had carried out forced organ harvesting on a significant scale, and that imprisoned Falun Gong practitioners were probably the principal source.
For forced organ harvesting.
The persecution continues till today. 2000s till today. Ethnic suppression. To maintain its rule, the CCP regime transferred a large number of Han ethnic people to Tibet, Xinjiang, and Inner Mongolia, where ethnic groups live with their own cultures and languages. The regime forced local schools to use Mandarin Chinese as the official language. In 2008, Tibetans protested to express their anger at the regime's control. The regime, in response, deployed the police. Hundreds of Tibetans were killed. In Xinjiang, the regime authorities have also been accused of committing genocide against Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities, including detaining 1 million people in secretive political re-education camps. This has been condemned by the world, with many people taking a stance against Uyghur suppression, despite the CCP denying any suppression whatsoever. The regime also uses a surveillance system to monitor ethnic groups. Surveillance cameras were set up in Tibetan monasteries, and biometric data are collected in Xinjiang. 2019. Hong Kong crackdown. 2019 was a landmark year for Hong Kong as thousands took to the streets to protest the extradition law proposed by pro-Beijing lawmakers. This erupted into months of clashes between police and protesters, with police raiding universities, firing tear gas and rubber bullets at pro-democracy protesters. Soon after in 2020, while the world was distracted by the pandemic, the CCP imposed the national security law on Hong Kong, which eroded their democracy and effectively placed Hong Kong under authoritarian CCP rule. Under the national security law, Beijing has control over the law in Hong Kong, and gives the CCP sweeping powers to target individuals for any acts of secession, subversion, terrorism, or collusion with foreign forces, which the CCP can define in its own terms. 2020. CCP virus cover-up. Most recently, the spread of the pandemic that has affected almost everyone globally was a result of the CCP's cover-up of the virus. In late December of 2019, although there were cases of COVID-19, or CCP virus, like symptoms, the CCP remained quiet about it and even tried to silence doctors who were sounding alarms about it. It was only in late January of 2020, when the virus had gone out of control in Wuhan, that they were forced to speak publicly about it. However, it was too late as the virus had spread widely throughout China, and was beginning to spread globally. Moreover, they remained deceptive in their counting of cases and severely underreported deaths when the virus first took hold. Presently, even in 2021, they remain opaque about the origins of the virus despite many international committees wanting to investigate, and have shifted the blame to other countries for the spread of the virus. Globally, millions have died as a result of the pandemic. Since its founding 100 years ago, the CCP has ruled over its people with force and suppression, and often, bloodshed. As the international community becomes more aware of the CCP's misdeeds, will its crimes go unpunished? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.